The rain hammered down on the twisted metal mountains that filled Roy Henderson's salvage yard. Thunder rolled across Redstone VII's rust-colored sky as he locked up his office for the night. 30 years he had been running this place, sorting through the bones of dead starships and broken dreams. Most days felt the same. Wake up, cut metal, sell scrap, go home alone. Roy pulled his jacket tighter and started walking toward the gate. His boots splashed through oily puddles that reflected the distant city lights. The junkyard stretched for nearly 2 miles in every direction, filled with everything from crashed shuttles to abandoned mining equipment. People brought him their trash and he turned it into credits. Simple work, honest work. Something moved near the old engine pile. Roy stopped walking. His hand went to the plasma cutter on his belt. Scavengers sometimes snuck in after dark looking for easy pickings. He had chased off plenty of thieves over the years, but this sound was different, softer, almost like crying. He moved closer, keeping his steps quiet. The engine pile was one of the oldest sections of his yard, where massive fusion cores sat rusting in the rain. Nobody ever came back here. Too dangerous, too unstable. The crying sound came again. Roy climbed over a broken thruster assembly and squeezed between 2 corroded fuel tanks. His flashlight cut through the darkness. At first he saw nothing but more junk. Then the beam caught something that made him freeze. A child lay curled up between the engine parts. But not a human child. The small body was covered in dark blue scales that should have gleamed but looked dull and lifeless. Wings that might have been beautiful were torn and dragging in the mud. The creature was maybe the size of a 6-year-old human, with a long tail wrapped around its thin body for warmth. Roy had seen plenty of aliens in his time. Redstone VII was a colony world, a mixing pot of 100 different species, but he recognized what this was, a Drakari, a dragon child. Most people would have run. The Drakari had a reputation across the galaxy. Dangerous, violent, predators who couldn't be trusted around civilized species. Every news report Roy had ever seen painted them as monsters. The child whimpered in its sleep. Roy stood there in the rain, watching. The creature was covered in cuts and bruises. Its breathing came in short, painful gasps. One wing hung. At a wrong angle, probably broken, this was no monster. This was a hurt kid who needed help. He should call planetary security. That was the right thing to do, the legal thing. They would come collect the child and take it to wherever alien orphans went. Roy would go back to his simple life, no complications. The child's eyes opened. They were bright gold even in the darkness, full of fear. They stared at each other for a long moment. Roy kept his hand away from the plasma cutter. The child trembled but didn't try to run. Maybe it was too weak. Maybe it had nowhere else to go. "Easy now," Roy said quietly. "I'm not gonna hurt you." The child's mouth opened slightly. A small tongue of flame flickered out, more reflex than threat. The fire died immediately, like the kid didn't have the energy to maintain it. Roy took a step back and held up his hands. Okay, I get it, you're scared, that's all right." He thought for a minute this was stupid. This was incredibly stupid. But he couldn't just leave a wounded child out here in the rain. Human or alien or whatever, that wasn't right. "I'm gonna go get some food and water. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back." The child watched him leave but didn't respond. Roy jogged to his office and grabbed his emergency supplies. Some dried meat, a canteen of clean water, and a thermal blanket from his first aid kit. His hands shook as he stuffed everything into a bag. What was he doing? This was insane, but he couldn't stop himself. When he returned, the child was still there, still watching, still afraid. Roy sat down about 10 feet away and put the bag between them. "I brought food, water too. You can take it if you want, no tricks." The child didn't move. Roy opened the canteen and took a drink himself, then set it down. He pulled out a piece of dried meat and ate some, showing it was safe. Then he placed the rest on the ground and scooted backward. Minutes passed, the rain kept falling. Roy stayed perfectly still. Finally, the child crawled forward. Its movements were painful to watch, each step an obvious struggle. Small claws reached out and grabbed the meat. The child stuffed it into its mouth, eating desperately like it hadn't seen food in days. Then it drank from the canteen in huge gulps. "When's the last time you ate?" Roy asked gently. The child looked at him. Its voice was rough and broken, speaking in halting galactic common. "Don't know. Days maybe, ship crashed, family gone, all gone." Roy felt something crack inside his chest. "I'm sorry, kid, I'm real sorry." "You not scared?" the child asked. "Everyone's scared of Drakari, everyone say we monsters." "You don't look like a monster to me. You look cold and hungry and hurt, that's what I see." The child pulled the thermal blanket around its shoulders. "My name Pip." "Pip, that's a good name, I'm Roy." He stood up slowly. "How about we get you out of this rain? I got a workshop with heat and a door that locks. You'll be safe there tonight." Pip hesitated. "You help me, why?" Roy thought about all the sensible answers, all the reasonable explanations, but the truth was simpler than that. "Because you need help, that's reason enough." He held out his hand. After a long moment, Pip reached up and took it. The small claws were gentle against Roy's calloused palm. Together they walked through the junkyard toward the workshop, leaving the rain and darkness behind. 3 weeks had passed since that rainy night. Roy's workshop looked different now. In the corner where he used to keep spare parts, there was a nest made from old blankets and salvaged cushions. Pip slept there every night, curled up near the portable heater Roy had set up. Morning sunlight streamed through the dirty windows as Roy heated up breakfast on his electric cooker. Nothing fancy, just protein bars and reconstituted eggs, but Pip ate everything like it was the best meal in the galaxy. The child had put on weight. The scales were starting to shine properly. The cuts had healed into thin scars. "Today I teach you about fusion cores," Roy said, scraping eggs onto 2 plates. "They're tricky. Gotta know which parts are still good and which ones are radioactive junk." Pip's tail swished with excitement. "I learn fast, you see." The kid wasn't lying. In 3 weeks, Pip had learned more about salvage work than most apprentices learned in 3 months. Those small claws could reach into tight spaces and remove components without damaging them. The dragon eyesight could spot flaws in metal that Roy needed magnification to see. Pip was a natural. But it wasn't just about the work. Roy had learned things too, like how Pip was terrified of loud noises, flinching every time a piece of metal crashed in the yard. How the child would hide whenever customers came by, pressing into the shadows until they left. How Pip sometimes woke up crying from nightmares about the crash. Roy never pushed. He just let Pip move at their own pace. Slowly, day by day, the fear was getting smaller. After breakfast, they headed into the yard. A new shipment had come in yesterday, parts from a mining vessel that had suffered engine failure. Plenty of good salvage if you knew where to look. Pip scrambled up the side of the ship with ease, wings spread for balance even though they couldn't fly yet. The broken wing was healing but still weak. Roy had splinted it as best he could, using materials from his workshop. "This panel here," Roy pointed. "See the stress fractures? That means the whole thing is compromised. We cut it out and sell it for basic recycling. But this one next to it is still solid. That's worth real credits." Pip ran small claws along the metal, feeling for weaknesses. "I feel it. This one bad, this one good." They worked together in comfortable silence, cutting away the valuable pieces and marking the junk for bulk disposal. Roy found himself smiling. The yard had never felt so alive. Having someone to teach, someone to talk to, it made the days mean something more than just survival. Around midday, Roy's stomach growled. "Let's break for lunch. You did good work this morning." They were walking back toward the workshop when a woman's voice called out from the front gate. "Hello, Roy Henderson, are you here?" Roy felt Pip tense beside him. The child's eyes went wide with fear. "Workshop now, stay quiet." Pip ran, disappearing into the building within seconds. Roy took a deep breath and headed for the gate. A woman stood there in a crisp uniform, her skin a light green color that marked her as Valerian. She held a data pad and had the look of someone who followed rules very carefully. "Can I help you?" Roy asked, keeping his voice neutral. "Officer Rena Ocht, Galactic Coalition Inspection Services. I'm here for a routine check of your salvage license and operations." Roy's heart hammered in his chest. Sure, everything's in order. He led her through the yard, showing her his permits and safety protocols. Rena made notes on her data pad, nodding occasionally. She seemed satisfied until they passed near the workshop. She stopped walking, her nose wrinkled slightly. "You have an animal living here." "Just me," Roy said quickly. "I sleep in the workshop sometimes when I work late." Rena's eyes narrowed. She walked to the workshop door. Roy wanted to stop her but couldn't without making things worse. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Her gaze went immediately to the corner, to the nest of blankets, to the half-eaten plate of food, to the small pile of clothes Roy had modified to fit a dragon child's body. "You have an unregistered alien minor living on these premises," Rena said, her voice hard. "Where is it?" Where is he? Pip is a kid, not in it." Drakari are classified as dangerous beings, especially juveniles. They're unpredictable and violent. "Pip hasn't hurt anyone. He works with me. He's learning a trade." Rena pulled out a scanning device and swept it around the room. Somewhere in the shadows, Pip was hiding. The scanner beeped. Rena pointed it at a storage locker. "Come out now." The locker door creaked open. Pip emerged, wings tucked tight against their body, tail dragging on the floor. The child looked at Roy with terrified eyes. "It's okay," Roy said softly. "Just be calm." Rena studied Pip with cold professional interest. "How long has this Drakari been here?" 3 weeks. His family died in a crash. I'm taking care of him." "That's illegal. Drakari minors must be registered with coalition services and placed in proper containment facilities." "Containment? He's a child, not a prisoner." "Drakari children require specialized handling. The facilities are designed to civilize them, to remove their aggressive tendencies." Rena's expression softened slightly. "I know you think you're helping, but these creatures aren't like human children. They're predators. The containment process is for everyone's safety." Roy stepped between Rena and Pip. "What happens in these facilities?" "Behavioral conditioning, strict discipline, isolation from stimuli that might trigger violent responses. It's very effective." "Sounds like torture to me." "That's not your decision to make." Rena closed her data pad. "I'm giving you 48 hours to arrange proper placement for this Drakari. If you don't, I'll return with enforcement officers and remove the child by force. After that, you'll face charges for harboring an unregistered dangerous being." She walked to the door, then paused. "I'm sorry, Mr. Henderson, I can see you care, but the law is clear. Drakari cannot be raised in standard environments. Too many incidents, too much risk." After she left, Roy sat down hard on his workbench. Pip crept closer, tears running down scaled cheeks. "They take me away, put me in bad place." Roy pulled the child into a hug. Pip's small body shook with sobs. "No, I won't let that happen. We'll figure something out, I promise." But as he held Pip close, Roy had no idea how to keep that promise. Roy spent the next day making calls. Every lawyer on Redstone VII, every social services agency, every adoption organization he could find in the colony databases. The answer was always the same. No one would help him keep a Drakari child. "Too dangerous," they said. "Against protocol. Impossible. Are you insane?" One lawyer actually laughed at him before hanging up. Pip sat in the corner of the workshop, watching Roy's growing frustration. The child had barely spoken since Rena's visit. The light had gone out of those golden eyes. They both knew what was coming. "I won't stop trying," Roy said, throwing his communicator on the desk. "There has to be a way." "Maybe she right," Pip said quietly. "Maybe I too dangerous. Maybe I hurt someone someday." "Don't talk like that. You're not dangerous. You're gentle and smart and kind." "But I Drakari. Everyone's scared of Drakari." Roy knelt down beside Pip. "Listen to me. I've met plenty of humans who were monsters, and I've met plenty of aliens who were good people. What species you are doesn't matter. What's in your heart, that's what counts. Pip leaned against him. What we do. I become your legal guardian. There's got to be a way to make it official. That night, Roy couldn't sleep. He sat at his computer, searching through legal codes and precedents. Most species had strict rules about who could care for their young. Cross-species adoption was rare. And adopting a Dracari, the database showed 0 successful cases. Then he found something. A human law, old Earth law that had been carried forward into the colony legal system. It said that any human citizen could petition to become guardian of a child in need, regardless of species, if they could prove the child's welfare would be served. It was a long shot, but it was something. Roy filed the paperwork that night. 300 forms, every detail of his life examined. Financial records, criminal background checks, psychological evaluations, character references. They wanted to know everything. The hearing was scheduled for the next afternoon, 47 hours after Rena's deadline. Roy put on his best clothes, which weren't very good, just a clean shirt and pants without holes. Pip wore a simple tunic Roy had sewn himself. The child's claws kept fidgeting with the fabric. You'll have to talk to the judge, Roy explained as they walked to the colony courthouse. Just be yourself, be honest, show them you're not a monster. I scared. Me too, kid, me too. The courthouse was a small building near the colony's administrative center. Inside, it smelled like recycled air and old documents. They sat on a hard bench outside the courtroom, waiting. Rena arrived wearing her full uniform. She nodded politely at Roy, but didn't smile. Behind her came 3 other coalition officers, all armed, just in case the dangerous Dracari child caused trouble. Pip pressed closer to Roy. It'll be okay, Roy whispered, though he didn't believe it himself. The courtroom was plain and functional. The magistrate was an elderly human woman named Judge Keiko Torres. She had gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. This is highly unusual, she said, reading through Roy's petition. A human requesting guardianship of a Dracari minor. Mr. Henderson, are you aware of the statistics regarding Dracari behavioral issues? I am, Your Honor, but statistics don't tell you about individuals. Pip is a good kid. Rena stood up. Your Honor, if I may, Dracari juveniles require specialized containment and conditioning. Mr. Henderson, despite his good intentions, is not equipped to handle a potentially violent predator species. The child should be transferred to a coalition facility immediately. Pip has never been violent, Roy said. Not once in 3 weeks. 3 weeks is nothing. Dracari aggression typically manifests during stress or adolescence. Judge Torres held up her hand. Officer Ocht, I've read your report. Mr. Henderson, I've read your petition. She looked at Pip. Young one, can you come forward, please? Pip walked slowly to the front of the courtroom. The child's tail dragged on the floor, wings tucked tight with nervousness. What's your name? The judge asked gently. Pip, Your Honors. How old are you, Pip? 6 cycles, that's about 7 human years. And how has Mr. Henderson treated you? Pip's voice got stronger. He saved me. I was dying in junkyard. He give me food and safe place. He teach me work. He teach me read better. He never hit me or yell at me. He good person. Judge Torres leaned forward. Are you afraid of him? No, I afraid of losing him. He only family I have now. The judge was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled out her data pad. Mr. Henderson, can you approach, please? Roy stood beside Pip. I'm going to give you a challenge, the judge said. This data pad is broken. The power connection is faulty. Fix it. Roy took the device and examined it. Sure enough, the connection was loose, but it required delicate work to repair without damaging the circuits. He looked at Pip. Can you help me with this? Your claws are smaller than mine. Pip nodded. Together they worked on the pad. Pip's small claws reached into the tight space and reconnected the power coupling. Roy guided the work but let Pip do the actual repair. In less than 2 minutes, the pad powered on. Judge Torres smiled for the first time. Impressive teamwork. Officer Ocht, in your experience, do violent predators collaborate on complex tasks with their victims? Rena frowned. Well, no, but that doesn't mean. Let me ask you something else. How many Drakari children have you personally interacted with outside of containment facilities? That's not permitted, Your Honor. Exactly. You've only seen Drakari children who have been traumatized by your facilities, children who have been treated like monsters until they became monsters. The judge looked at several other people in the courtroom. Are there any character witnesses for Mr. Henderson? An old woman stood up from the back. Roy recognized her. Mrs. Chen, who owned the bakery in town. I've known Roy for 15 years. He's a good man, and I've seen him with the child. That little one comes to my shop every week to buy bread, always polite, always careful with money, never caused a problem. A mechanic from the industrial district stood next. Roy brought the kid to help me fix my loader last week. The child's got talent, gentle hands, good attitude, didn't seem dangerous to me. One by one, people spoke up. Neighbors, customers, people who had seen Roy and Pip around town. All of them said the same thing. Pip was just a kid trying to survive. Judge Torres listened to everything. Then she made her decision. Judge Torres set down her data pad and looked directly at Pip. The courtroom was completely silent. Roy felt his heart pounding so hard he thought everyone could hear it. This is a difficult case, the judge said slowly. The Galactic Coalition has clear policies about Drakari minors. Those policies exist for reasons. There have been incidents. People have been hurt. Roy felt Pip shrink beside him. However, the judge continued, those policies were created based on data from containment facilities. Facilities that, by their very nature, create the conditions for violence and fear. Officer Ocht, I've read the reports from these facilities. The isolation, the punishment protocols, the aggressive conditioning techniques. If we treated human children that way, we'd call it abuse. Rena stood up. Your Honor, with respect, Drakari are not human children. They have different needs, different instincts. Do they? Judge Torres interrupted. Or do they just have different biology? Mr. Henderson, you're human. Your ancestors came from Earth. Can you tell me about Earth's history with treating people as inherently dangerous based on what they are rather than who they are? Roy stood straighter. This was his chance. Yes, Your Honor, humans have a long, ugly history of that. We judged people by their skin color, their religion, their ancestry. We put people in camps and called them threats just because they looked different. We created laws that said some people were less than human. And what did humanity learn from that? The judge asked. That we were wrong, that judging people as individuals is the only fair way, that treating someone like a monster usually creates monsters, but treating them with respect and love creates good people. Roy put his hand on Pip's shoulder. I look at Pip and I see a scared kid who lost everything, a smart kid who wants to learn and work and have a safe place to sleep. That's what I see. Not a category, not a species designation, a person. Judge Torres nodded slowly. The human legal tradition recognizes something that Galactic Coalition law sometimes forgets. Children are not born evil. They're shaped by how they're treated. Mr. Henderson is arguing that Pip should be judged as an individual, not as a species. That's a dangerous precedent, Rena said. If we allow one Drakari child to be raised outside containment, others will demand the same treatment. And would that be bad? The judge asked. If more Drakari children grew up healthy and integrated into society instead of traumatized and isolated. Rena had no answer. For that, Judge Torres looked at Pip again. Young one, do you understand what fire safety means? Yes, Your Honor, I never breathe fire inside buildings. I only practice outside in safe areas with Roy watching. Fire is dangerous, must be controlled. And if you got angry at someone, what would you do? Use words. Roy says words are better than claws or fire. If words don't work, walk away and calm down. Has Mr. Henderson ever hurt you or threatened you? Never he patient, he kind, even when I make mistakes. The judge turned to Roy. Mr. Henderson, do you understand the responsibility you're taking on? Pip will grow larger and stronger. The adolescent years will be challenging. Drakari physiology includes natural weapons that human children don't have. I understand, Your Honor, but human kids can be dangerous too if they're not raised right. Any child needs guidance and boundaries and love. The biology is different, but the needs are the same. What if Pip does hurt someone? What if your faith in this child is misplaced? Roy took a deep breath. Then I'll take responsibility, but I don't think it'll happen. Pip has had every reason to be violent, trauma, loss, fear, hunger, and instead the kid chose to trust me, chose to learn, chose to be gentle. That tells me everything I need to know about who Pip really is. Judge Torres was quiet for a long time. She looked at her data pad. She looked at Rena's formal reports. She looked at the character witnesses. Finally, she looked at Pip and Roy standing together. Here's my decision. I'm granting Mr. Henderson temporary guardianship of Pip for a period of 6 months. During that time, you will both be monitored. Pip will undergo regular psychological evaluations. Roy, you'll submit monthly reports on Pip's development and behavior. At the end of 6 months, we'll have another hearing to determine if permanent guardianship is appropriate. Roy felt relief wash over him like a wave. Temporary wasn't perfect, but it was a chance. However, the judge continued, I want to be very clear about something. This is not just about you two. This is about challenging a system that may be doing more harm than good. Officer Ocht, I'm requesting that the Coalition review its policies on Drakari minors. I want independent evaluations of the containment facilities. I want data on long-term outcomes for children who go through that system. Rena's face was unreadable. I'll file your request, Your Honor, but I want it on record that I believe this decision is dangerous. Your objection is noted, but I believe the truly dangerous thing is continuing a policy that traumatizes children based on fear rather than evidence. Judge Torres smiled at Pip. Young one, you have a chance here that most Drakari children never get, a chance to grow up safe and loved. Don't waste it. I won't, Your Honor, I promise. The judge struck her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. Mr. Henderson, take your son home. Your son, Roy felt something warm bloom in his chest. Pip looked up at him with shining eyes. They walked out of the courthouse together. The afternoon sun was bright and warm. Pip's tail swished happily, no longer dragging on the ground. We did it, Pip whispered. We did it, Roy agreed. 6 months to prove them all wrong. Think we can manage that? Yes, we worked together like always. Roy ruffled the scales on top of Pip's head, something the kid had come to enjoy. Come on, let's go home. I'll teach you about servo motors this afternoon. As they walked back toward the junkyard, Roy noticed people watching them. Some looked curious, some looked concerned. But a few, like Mrs. Chen standing outside her bakery, smiled and waved. This was just the beginning. 6 months to prove that love mattered more than species. 6 months to show that Pip deserved the same chance as any child. 6 months to change minds. Roy had faced harder challenges. He'd survived 30 years running a junkyard on a colony world. He'd rebuilt crashed ships and salvaged fusion cores. He could handle this. Besides, he wasn't alone anymore. He had Pip, and Pip had him. That was all they needed. 4 months passed like water flowing downstream. The junkyard transformed from just a workplace into something more, something that felt like home. Roy had rebuilt part of his living quarters to give Pip a proper room. The child needed space to spread wings during sleep. Drakari dreamed while flying in their minds, and cramped spaces caused nightmares. So Roy knocked down a wall and expanded the area, adding high ceilings and perches that Pip could climb. The broken wing had healed completely. Pip could glide short distances now, launching from high points and catching air currents. Full flight would come with time and practice. Roy had built a training area in the junkyards. Back section where Pip could work on wing strength without risking injury. Every morning they worked together. Pip had become indispensable to the salvage business. The child could identify rare components just by touch, could squeeze into spaces Roy's larger frame couldn't reach, and had developed an instinct for knowing which parts were worth keeping. Customers started requesting Pip specifically for difficult extraction jobs. The monthly reports to the court were always positive. Pip's psychological evaluations showed a healthy, well-adjusted child. No signs of aggression, no concerning behaviors. The therapist assigned to monitor Pip seemed genuinely surprised by the results. But Roy knew it wasn't magic. It was consistency. It was patience. It was showing up every single day and being the safe, steady presence that Pip needed. On a Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. Roy was in the office handling paperwork when he heard voices outside. Multiple voices. Young voices. He walked out to find Pip talking with 3 other alien children near the main gate. One was a small Quillen, her fur matted and dirty. Another was a Tekari boy with cracked shell plates. The third was something Roy didn't recognize, a species with 4 arms and nervous eyes. All of them looked hungry and scared. "Roy, this is Lyra, Dax, and Sophie," Pip said. "They heard about us, about how you helped me. They need help too." Roy looked at the 3 children. They couldn't have been older than 8 or 9 in their respective species aging. Orphans, runaways, lost kids with nowhere to go. "You all hungry?" Roy asked. They nodded. "All right, come on, let's get you fed first, then we'll figure out the rest." He set out food in the workshop while the children ate like they hadn't seen a meal in days. Pip sat with them, translating when their galactic common failed, offering comfort in the way only someone who had been there could. Roy learned their stories. Lyra's parents died in a mining accident. The colony services wanted to send her back to Quillen homeworld, but she had no family there. Dax ran away from an abusive situation. Sophie's ship had been attacked by pirates and she was the only survivor. All of them had slipped through the cracks of the system. All of them were trying to survive on the streets. "I can't officially take all of you in," Roy said carefully. "I'm barely legal with Pip, but I can feed you, teach. Give you a safe place during the day, and I can help you navigate the system, find proper placements." "Like you found for Pip?" Lyra asked hopefully. "I'm still fighting for Pip. Got 2 months left on temporary guardianship before the final hearing, but yeah, I can try to help." Over the next week, more children came. Word spread through the hidden networks that desperate kids used to survive. The human at the junkyard would help, wouldn't ask questions, wouldn't call authorities right away, would just help. Roy found himself running an unofficial community center. He taught salvage skills, basic repair work, practical mathematics, how to read technical diagrams. The children learned fast because the knowledge meant survival. Skills meant credits. Credits meant food and shelter. Pip became a teacher alongside Roy. The dragon child showed the others how to sort metals, how to identify valuable components, how to handle tools safely. Pip was patient and kind, never making the others feel stupid for not knowing things. Roy watched Pip with the younger children and felt pride swell in his chest. This was who Pip really was, not a dangerous predator, a protector, a helper, a good person who had been given a chance and was now passing that chance to others. Then one afternoon, a massive ship landed at the colony's main port. The design was unfamiliar to most residents, but Roy had seen enough wreckage to recognize it. Drakari, a trading vessel from deep space. News spread quickly. The first Drakari ship to visit Redstone VII in over a decade. 3 days later, 2 adult Drakari walked into Roy's junkyard. They were enormous compared to Pip, nearly 10 feet tall with wings that could probably lift a cargo container. Their scales shimmered in colors that shifted between deep blue and purple. They moved with dangerous grace. Roy's hand went to his plasma cutter, not to threaten, just reflex. The larger Drakari spoke in surprisingly good galactic common. "We heard there is a Drakari child here, living with a human. We came to see if this is true." Pip stepped out from behind a pile of salvage. The child looked so small next to the adults. "I'm Pip." The two Drakari stared. Then the larger one dropped to one knee, bringing his massive head level with Pip's. Child, you are healthy, your scales shine, your wings are healing properly. This is not what we expected to find. Roy takes care of. Me, Pip said simply. The other Drakari, slightly smaller and female, looked at Roy. Most Drakari children in coalition space are broken things, traumatized, violent because they were treated violently. We lose so many of our young to your facilities. Pip doesn't live in a facility, Roy said. Pip lives here with me. The larger Drakari introduced himself as Corvin and his companion as Shiera. They were merchants who had heard rumors about a Drakari child living free in human care. They had to see it for themselves. We have come to make an offer, Corvin said. Pip, you could return with us to Drakari space, to our homeworld. You would be with your own kind, learn your heritage, fly in open skies where Drakari are not feared. Roy felt his heart drop into his stomach. Pip looked at Roy, then back at Corvin. I can leave, go to Drakari world. Yes, child, we would take you, protect you, teach you the old ways. Shiera added, you deserve to know where you come from, to understand what being Drakari truly means. Here you will always be other, always be the dangerous one. On our world you would simply be one of us. Roy forced himself to speak. It's your choice, Pip. I won't stop you. If you want to go with them to be with your own people, I understand. Pip was quiet for a long time. The child's tail curled and uncurled with thought. Finally, Pip looked up at the two adults. Can I think about it? This is big choice. Of course, Corvin said gently. We are here for 5 more days. Take your time. This is your decision. After they left, Pip sat on the workshop floor, wings drooping. Roy sat down beside the child. You okay? I don't know, they right. I never know Drakari culture, never fly in safe place, never be normal. Pip's voice cracked. But you are my family now. This is my home. How do I choose? Roy pulled Pip close. You don't have to choose right away. Like they said, take your time. Whatever you decide, I'll support you, even if it breaks my heart to see you go. They sat together in the fading light, both of them facing an impossible choice. Pip spent 3 days in quiet contemplation. The child still worked in the junkyard, still helped the other young ones who came for food and guidance, but something had changed. There was a distance in those golden eyes, a weighing of futures that Roy couldn't help with. On the 3rd day, Corvin and Shiera returned. They brought gifts, Drakari textiles woven with traditional patterns, recordings of Drakari music and stories, a small pendant carved from homeworld stone. These are for you to keep regardless of your choice, Shiera said, kneeling beside Pip. You should know your heritage, know where your ancestors flew. Pip touched the pendant carefully. Tell me about homeworld, what's it like? Corvin's eyes grew distant with memory. The sky is violet at dawn. The mountains reach so high that clouds gather at their base. Drakari children learn to fly by leaping from the cliff nests, catching thermals that rise from the warm valleys. You would have siblings there, teachers, a whole community of your own kind. It sounds beautiful, Pip said quietly. It is, but it is not perfect. We have our own struggles, our own prejudices, our own arguments about how things should be. Corvin looked at Roy. What this human has given you most children on our world never receive: individual attention, patient teaching, safety without cruelty. Roy was surprised. I thought Drakari raised their young communally. We do, and it works for most, but some children need more, need different. On our world, Pip would be one of many. Here, Pip is seen as an individual. Shiera added, we have been watching you both. The way you work together, the way you care for the other lost children. This is not common, this is special. Pip stood up, wings spreading slightly. I want to be Drakari, want to know my people, but I also want to stay here with Roy, with the kids who need help. Can I be both? Corvin and Shiera looked at each other. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Perhaps, Corvin said slowly, there is a middle path. We return to this colony 4 times each year on our trade route. Each visit we could spend time with you, teach you language, culture, history. you would learn what being Drakari means while staying in your home. And when you are older, Shiera said, old enough to make the choice with full understanding, you could decide then whether to visit our world or remain here. Pip's tail began to swish with excitement. Roy, would that be okay? Roy felt relief flood through him. Of course, you deserve to know both parts of who you are. Human and Drakari, Earth colony and homeworld, it all makes you who you are. Then that's what I want. Learn from everyone, be all of me. Corvin stood, his massive frame somehow gentle. We will return in 3 months. Until then, young one, grow strong, grow wise. After they left, Pip hugged Roy tightly. Thank you for letting me choose, for not being angry. I could never be angry about you wanting to know your heritage. That's healthy, that's good. The next weeks flew past. The final guardianship hearing was approaching. Roy submitted his reports, all showing Pip's continued positive development. The other children who had started coming to the junkyard were being helped too. Roy had connected most of them with proper social services, using his experience with Pip to navigate the system better. The junkyard had become something unexpected, a place where broken things, both metal and hearts, could be mended. Then Officer Renna appeared at the gate one morning. Roy's stomach clenched. She was early. The hearing was still a week away. Mr. Henderson, Pip, may I speak with you both? They sat in the workshop. Renna looked different, less rigid, almost uncertain. I need to tell you something, she began. After your hearing 4 months ago, I was angry. I thought Judge Torres was being naive, putting people at risk for sentiment. Roy stayed quiet, waiting. So I did what she asked. I investigated the Drakari containment facilities, really investigated, talked to children who went through the system, reviewed the long-term outcome data. Renna's voice got quieter. What I found was horrifying. The facilities don't civilize Drakari children, they break them. 90% develop severe psychological trauma. Many become violent, but only after years of abuse disguised as conditioning. Pip moved closer to Roy. I found records of children who died in those facilities, officially from illness or accident, but the patterns suggested otherwise. Renna looked directly at Pip. I owe you an apology. I was enforcing a system that was destroying children. I thought I was keeping people safe, but I was part of something cruel. Why are you telling us this? Roy asked. Because things are changing. Your case started something. Judge Torres shared her findings with the coalition. 3 other colonies have begun reviewing their policies on alien minors. The containment facility on Redstone VII is being shut down pending investigation. Renna pulled out a data pad. I'm here officially to inform you that my recommendation for the final hearing is permanent guardianship. Full legal parent rights for you, Mr. Henderson. Roy couldn't speak. Pip made a small, happy sound. More than that, Renna continued, I'm recommending that the colony establish a proper foster system for alien children, modeled on Earth traditions. With you as a consultant, if you're willing. Me, why me? Because you did something the rest of us couldn't. You saw a child instead of a category. You offered love instead of fear. Renna stood. The hearing next week is a formality now. Pip will legally be your son. Congratulations. After she left, Roy and Pip sat in stunned silence. Then Pip started laughing, real, joyful laughter that filled the workshop. We won, Pip said. We actually won. We did better than win. We changed things. The hearing the following week was brief. Judge Torres granted permanent guardianship with a smile. The courtroom, which had been nearly empty before, was full. Mrs. Chen was there. The mechanic, Lyra and Dax and Sophie and all the other children Roy had helped. Even some of the customers from the junkyard. When the judge's gavel fell, everyone cheered. That night, Roy and Pip stood in the junkyard watching the stars. Somewhere up there was Drakari homeworld. Somewhere up there were countless other worlds with their own lost children. What are we going to do now? Pip asked. Roy put his hand on Pip's shoulder. Same thing we've been doing. Fix broken things, help lost kids, show people that different doesn't mean dangerous. Sounds like a plan. Above them, a ship's contrail caught the sunset light. The galaxy was huge and full of problems. But here in this small junkyard on Redstone VII, things were getting better. One child at a time, one choice at a time. Roy looked at Pip, his son, and felt something he hadn't felt in 30 years. Hope for the future. Not just for them, but for all the children who deserved better than fear and containment. "Come on," Roy said. "Let's go inside. I'll teach you that advanced servo repair I promised." Pip's tail swished happily. "And after that, can I help Sophie with her welding practice?" "After that, yes. We've got work to do, always more work to do." They walked back to the workshop together, leaving footprints in the dust. Behind them, the junkyard stretched out like a kingdom of second chances. Ahead of them, the future waited, full of possibility. In the end, that was what humanity offered the galaxy, not superior technology or military might, just the stubborn belief that everyone deserved kindness. Everyone deserved a chance. Everyone deserved to be seen for who they really were. It wasn't much, but sometimes it was everything.